We are back. It's the Joe Holka Show presented by Line Movement. Week 16, 3 studs, 3 duds. Talking through some of the relevant players for fantasy football, DFS that we might be especially high or low on. And I say we because I continue to not do this by myself, of course. We do have Sigmund Bloom with us yet again. He is the co-owner of footballguys.com. So there's a lot of things going on this time of the year. We were just talking about it, Sig, before we jumped on, that, yeah, there's some people that might be done with fantasy football for the year. So, like, there's a little bit less interest in stuff that we're talking about. But the people that are here, they have a lot on the line. It's basically, it should be at least, it's championship week, right? So how was your week 15, Sig? This is always an interesting week 16 for people. Most people should be in their finals though, right?
Yeah, I was in 4 semifinals and 1 toilet bowl final where you get a first round pick if you win. So I won the toilet bowl in spite of benching Logan Thomas for Traquan Smith at like 11:59 Mount Central time. Really, there's another lesson here. There's going to be a theme to this, which is just don't over manage your teams. In my 4 finals, semifinals, there was one when I just got roundly thumped by JJ Zacharyson, quarterback in the Apex Expert League, because, well, I had Raheem Mostert and Nyheim Hines at running back, and he had Dalvin Cook and Josh Jacobs.
Okay.
That's the end of that story. The other 3 are all in some way, shape, or form going to come down to Deontay Johnson, which is kind of scary. In all 3 cases, I'm relying on him. In one case, I just need him to get 3.8 points in a PPR league, and then I can go to a final and be an extreme underdog against a team that is ridiculously stacked. In another one, a little tougher against fellow football guy Chase Stewart, I need the Steelers defense in a pretty robust scoring system for defenses and Deontay Johnson to combine for like 31. Also lost to Clyde Edwards, another one. Here's the moral of the story one, though, right? Ryan Van Bibber, a wonderful guy. We were playing in the semifinals, and this is a dynasty league where we don't have a trade deadline, so you can keep making trades when you're in the playoffs, and it usually sets off an arms race, and it's fun. I think it's great. I think it's as long as you trust the people in your league.
Teams are really going for it, right? Giving away picks, that sort of thing. It's almost the time to sell then, probably, for some of those teams,
exactly.
Right?
You can get better value for your assets, and when you're in the semis or in the finals, you think, well, how can I not upgrade this spot? Here's what's funny. I traded for T.Y. Hilton, and Rich Rebar, Lord Reeves, was the team out of contention trading away players in all 3 of these scenarios. Okay, nice. I traded away a couple of later picks to get T.Y. Hilton to replace Jacoby Myers because I didn't trust Cam Newton. Ryan, because Noah Fant, Denver, he traded to get Rob Gronkowski and Emmanuel Sanders, in the process benching Noah Fant and Devin Singletary.
Wow,
so lost. We all made terrible decisions. We all would have been better off holding on to our draft picks and just starting the players we had. As long as Deontay Johnson has like about a 15 or so, which in PPR is pretty average for him, it won't have made a difference. But if Johnson comes up small, then that will be the reason I advance. But I need Deontay Johnson to not be a -1.
Yeah. Oh, God. Can you imagine he comes out there and drops one right away, or he fumbles or something, and then he's pulled through SC?
He'll get the point, and then that'll cancel out the fumble. But if they do like a reverse, he loses like 4 yards and fumbles, and then he gets hurt, or they're like, that's it.
I'd say you're in good shape, but I don't want to completely bloom you here.
It is before.
Yeah. Oh, that's wild.
Know somebody listening has lost a fantasy matchup on a scenario like that, because people often ask, should I go ahead and bench this player because I'm officially in the lead on Monday night? But stat corrections can get you if you decide to do that, because I'm only up by 1 point on Van Bibber. So
I know that as well as anyone. I lost. I've told you the story. I've lost that championship on a stat correction. I think a defense got a sack, and my defense lost a sack, something like that. So it does happen for sure, and it's the worst feeling in the world.
But it's fun. I think that it really magnifies, Joe, the way that in fantasy football we put way too much importance on random events.
Definitely the case. All right, so let's jump in here to our 3 studs and 3 duds. The first guy on your list here, the duo, I should say, is on Sunday Night Football. So we'll roll through this one a little bit quicker for the guys. Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams. Obviously, if you're playing the showdown slate on Sunday night, this is a pretty big decision, but seems like a pretty amazing spot against the Titans on this one. So if you have those guys going into your championship round, you're probably feeling pretty good, right?
Yeah, and then for DFS especially, and it's showdown slate. Remember, Tennessee gave up 25 to Detroit, and DeAndre fumbled at the goal line, and TJ Hawkinson fumbled at about the 20. So Detroit could have been well into the 30s there. So I think that Green Bay is, after a down week, a bit, maybe they just didn't get the intensity up against Carolina on Saturday night. They're going to have to get it up for the Tennessee game. That could easily be the highest scoring game of the week. And I think you can go back to that duo as your foundation of your DFS lineup, and also for those player props. Bet the over.
Love it. So one situation we've been, I think, a little bit more cautious on. I know Russell Wilson was one of your duds last week. So your first dud of week 16 is DK Metcalf, right? So his price hasn't moved probably as much as it should have on DraftKings. So I think it's an interesting situation to kind of buy low, but man, is it tough to get on board with Russell Wilson in this offense right now.
And it's tough because of the changing philosophy. It's tough because, Rashad Penny got hurt, but they still have two very healthy running backs. It's tough because the Rams play Russell Wilson tough at times. First time this year they did. Jalen Ramsey on DK Metcalf. That's enough to say there might be some crazy decisions where you're thinking, am I really benching DK Metcalf for? And this also brings up another idea. And Joe, you can take this and run with it, or the line movement people can take it and run with it. Because I was thinking about this with the Russell Wilson call last week. Russell Wilson was actually the second worst fantasy quarterback of all the quarterbacks that played, unless we're counting about CJ Beathard.
That's wild.
I know. Only Colt McCoy was worse for fantasy football than Russell Wilson yesterday. But how do you profit off of that? You avoid them or you bench him. I was going to bench him for Taysom Hill.
Yep.
And I didn't have a chance to do that. Anyway.
People like me don't benefit from that, Sig. So the narrative has already passed, right? So the people that are down on Russell Wilson, it's known that that's a spot right now where it's just there's a lot of volatility there. We haven't seen the prices move on the wide receivers enough. So it's a position where the ceiling's there. If things break right or break differently than the field thinks, then you can benefit from that. So someone like me, you get Russell Wilson in the DraftKings Live final at 2%, you're feeling decent about that. But then, like you said, if it ends up actually going the way the rest of the field you don't have a chance, right? So it's always we say you want to be contrarian, but you don't want to be dumb. So I think that maybe there's some argument in favor of at where their prices are still. That's probably closer to the dumb side of things. So let's move on. Let's move on to your next your next stud of the week. It's the Tampa Bay running backs. And I'll say this, I was not on Leonard Fournette last week. I was one of the few people that didn't think that he was going to be a decent play at his price on DraftKings at 4,500. Gets in the end zone twice. I did have some Brady shares that really took a hit from those touchdowns. And basically two guys get stopped at the 1 yard line. Fournette comes in, cleans up shop. So what are your thoughts on this group, in Tampa Bay backfield this week?
Well, again, it's Detroit. I mean, we're looking back at that Tennessee-Detroit game, and Ryan Tannehill scored twice, and Derrick Henry scored, and it was just so many scoring opportunities. Now, it's possible that it could be Brady. So here's the bottom line. Take a stand on this Tampa game. Your Brady stack or Fournette, there's going to be points, many points. So that was a rough beat, too, as Brady was the worst quarterback of the day for a half and the best quarterback of the day for a half, which kind of made you feel if you played him when you saw Fournette getting the touchdowns. But it looks like Fournette is back in the circle of trust. However, I said Tampa Bay running back, Ronald Jones might be back. So maybe it's Jones. Maybe they split it up. I don't know. I know they're going to score touchdowns.
It muddles the water a little bit for sure. Probably says a little bit more about Brady than it does actually picking the right Tampa Bay running back in some ways too, right? So I think that's interesting. If we move to your next dud, it's DeAndre Swift. So he gets in the end zone twice last week. He was super low owned. I wasn't on him. It's just there's so much volatility to that touch projection overall. But in this spot, it sounds like you're down on him in week 16.
Yeah, and it's just if you're following the points, my colleague John Norton calls it ambulance chasing, then he had 2 touchdowns, should have had 3. Got one punched out at the goal line. It's probably not going to be there against Tampa. Maybe it'll be there as a receiver. Maybe in your point per reception. I'm not sure. I don't remember which DFS provided us point per reception. Maybe
DraftKings,
DraftKings. But let me go back. I got to get this idea out there. Okay.
Sure.
So it's like low ball poker, Joe. Except instead of a salary ceiling, you have a salary floor. You have to spend 50 million, whatever, 50,000 this week, and whoever gets the lowest score wins. So that's how we can use the skill of knowing that Russell Wilson's going to be a dud, right? you can pick all the studs, but can you pick all the duds? And I think especially for people who, I don't want to say that they're bored per se from DFS, but it just doesn't give them that rush, even if they see the money continuing to roll in every week. That's a challenge I think that a lot of people would be up for. And it's a whole new angle of taking advantage of knowing not who's going to be great. Sometimes you're just better at knowing who's going to suck.
They do those sometimes. I think in basketball, maybe they do these low ball contests where you have to spend a certain amount of salary, and that's the lowest. I don't even know. I guess the injuries would kind of affect that in some ways too. But
everybody injured is on the slate. Yeah. Pull them off the slate. No cheapies.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so this next guy overall, your last stud, your stud number 3, Miles Sanders. He's 7K on DraftKings, so he's underneath like that top tier of the salary where it normally is. But against Dallas, I guess obviously having a rushing quarterback now helps the running game in a lot of ways. So Miles Sanders.
Yeah, exactly. And that's it. It's Dallas. You still had well over 100 rushing yards between Mostert and Wilson. Wilson had a touchdown. There was another one, the touchdown Ayuk got followed. I think they had 3 shots from inside the 5. Dallas jumped out to a lead. They couldn't nurse the lead and keep that game so that San Francisco couldn't get back to their running game. All these things point to Miles Sanders. You saw on that reception, you saw that speed. This could be the week. Miles Sanders is doing it against good teams. He's breaking off long runs against defenses like New Orleans and Pittsburgh, Baltimore. Against Dallas, he may do it more than once.
I like it. I think that's a pretty good call, bro. That's one of the guys we talked about on the DFS First Look this week. So I'm in on that one for sure. A guy that I was definitely in on last week. Obviously, that news breaks really late with Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott. So your last dud of week 16 is actually Tony Pollard. So if you just look at the volume overall, it wasn't anything fantastic. We know he's used through the air, but his price is all the way up to $6,500 now. We'll see if Zeke's back, but I'm curious your take.
Yeah, if Zeke's not back, then it's maybe you dabble. But this is a game where I think Philadelphia's run defense is very good. Except for one long run by Nick Chubb, they were up to the task when they played Cleveland. So it's a very good run defense. And I just think that with Tony Pollard, you racked up some points as a receiver. You had a touchdown, not quite a garbage time touchdown because the game was still in the balance, but certainly it was not a game that you look at Tony Pollard's performance, you say, he should be a foundational running back. They shouldn't have paid Zeke. He's still a very good player. So I could see the pendulum swinging back too much, people chasing the 30 points he put up last week in PPR leagues, and it being a much smaller week for him.
Yeah, only 30% owned roughly, depending on what contest you're in. So there's some people that probably feel like they missed out a little bit on that, but he does break that touchdown at the end too. Still probably would have, I think it was 20 DK points or 20 PPR points without that touchdown. But interesting when the pendulum does swing that other way a little bit harder. Sigmund Bloom, everyone. You guys know him from Football Guys, obviously. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at Sigmund Bloom. Sig, have a great holiday, my friend.
Always a pleasure. Same to you and yours.